All right, we welcome you in on a Friday. It's the Everything Guide to Sports Betting, where we go back to the basics, the principles of sports betting with the author of the Everything Guide to Sports Betting, Josh Appelbaum. I'm Patrick Meagher, live from Vegas. And as we close out the week, this is a huge show, a very important show, Josh, as we're going to focus on the different bet types.
Yeah, Patrick, great to be with you once again. And yeah, we got an exciting show lined up for all our VSiN viewers and listeners today. We're going to focus on bet types, but really specifically different types of a betting season. So we're really going to look at differences in how to approach preseason betting versus regular season betting, also looking at postseason betting. And also we're going to talk about the off season. I think this is something that may not get a lot of publicity or talk, but there is kind of an unofficial off season for bettors in the summer. What can you do during that time? How can you get your mind right? How can you kind of research how you've done to learn about yourself and reassess your bankroll and improve? So we'll talk about how to attack that. We'll also be joined by Thomas Gable, one of our best friends, Patrick, the director
Yep.
of the race in the sports book at the Borgata, one of the best casinos and sports books in Atlantic City. So kind of the topic today will be the fact that really sports betting is a 365 endeavor. There's an unofficial off season, but it's really a grind. But you got to remember that despite kind of the long marathon, not sprint attitude of sports betting, you got to be conscious of the sports betting calendar. You got to be conscious of the fact that different season types, whether it's preseason, regular season, postseason, they're going to entail different elements. They're going to be different edges that you should be aware of. There's going to be, the value of betting against the public and going contrarian will be different based on the season type. So we'll run through it all, but should be a great show, Patrick. Can't wait to dive into it with you.
Yeah, and I think it's a great distinction. Most sports have three distinct seasons: the preseason, the regular season, the postseason, and they're all approached very differently. And you have to handle them differently. And I think why don't we get started and jump into the preseason here, Josh? Short time frame, only available in the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and of course the NHL.
Yeah. So first off, you want to be conscious of the fact again that this is really just for pro sports. The college sports aren't going to have a preseason, and what you want to do is kind of completely. You want to throw away a lot of the things that maybe apply to the regular season and postseason, and know that it's a very unique time of year for a bunch of different reasons. So number one, these are exhibition games. Preseason, really, it doesn't matter wins and losses. A team could go winless in the preseason, but go on to win, the Super Bowl or whatever it may be. So just the fact that wins and losses don't matter. So that's going to be something that you want to be aware of going into your bets. So to me, it's a lot about motivation, the motivation between two clubs. And we'll talk about in a second, looking at, non-playoff teams the previous year versus playoff teams. But again, the fact that it's only the major sports, it's a really short time frame. You're only going to have, usually a month or, maybe 10, 15 games in the NBA, or, you look at football, you only have 4. That's going to be knocked down to 3. So it's a short time frame. And before we kind of dive into kind of the ups and downs or the situations you want to look at in preseason, I look at preseason betting in one of two ways. And you're going to find a lot of different sports bettors may disagree about this. And there's no real right or wrong way, but I look at it as number one, either you completely lay off of preseason, which you can make a case why you don't want to touch it. Again, there's way more variables. A lot of times you don't know who's playing and who isn't. A lot of times it's going to be young guys trying to get experience, or star players may sit out, or it could be a player that only plays a couple innings or maybe 5 minutes and really just works on one part of their game. So you may want to lay off, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we're also going to look at, if you're going to bet it, you want to be able to make a smart bet. So we're going to run through all the different things and different edges you should look at in preseason, with also tips to build your bankroll over time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. As you said that, it's funny. Two professional handicappers here in Vegas and I'm friends with, literally, that's what they do. They bet for a living. One, his philosophy completely lays off, takes notes during the preseason. The other, he goes hard. He does a lot of betting during the preseason and specifically in the NFL. So we're going to get to those individual sports as we continue along here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. You mentioned it, the Borgata TG, Thomas Gable. I can't wait to talk to him. My favorite segment here on the Everything Guide, of course, Bankroll Builder. We'll teach you how to use these concepts to make some money. But again, we do welcome you in. If you missed anything, go to vsin.com, at vsin live on Twitter as well. The Everything Guide to Sports Betting, as we say hi and welcome you in here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. The author of the Everything Guide to Sports Betting is Josh Appelbaum. You can find Josh at Josh_insights. And today, a perfect way to end the week because we're talking different bet types. We started with preseason, and we mentioned there's different philosophies. None of this is finite as far as whether you should or shouldn't, right, Josh?
Yeah, and I think what you really touched on, Patrick, is a great point because there are wise guys who love preseason and really crush preseason and get down hard. There are guys who don't touch it at all. So my first recommendation to a lot of new viewers or listeners is kind of pick one way to go. If you're going to lay off, then that's fine. If you're going to go at it, then go at it hard and try to do well at it and put in the time and effort. I think if you're caught somewhere in between and hey, I'll bet this spring training game just because I'm bored and it's an afternoon game, or okay, I'll bet this NFL preseason game since it's a Thursday and I got nothing to do. That's not the way you want to approach it. I would either go all in or all out when you're talking about preseason. But with that being said, if you are going to bet it, let's talk about some tips to help you win some money during preseason, because this can be a great time of year where if you put in the time and effort, if you really locate an edge and you make a little money, that's going to give you a little cushion going into the regular season. You'll build your bankroll up a little bit, and that'll just make you, have more money to play with when you're betting the regular season. So when I'm talking about preseason, the first thing I look at is if you're going to bet it, there is a lot of value on underdogs in general. And this isn't every single game. Nothing in betting can be just, a broad stroke that is, true for everything. But generally speaking, there's a lot of value on underdogs in the preseason for a couple different reasons. Number one, the fact that it's an exhibition season, the scores don't matter, the wins and losses don't matter. If you're looking at a spread sport, the team getting points oftentimes it can be a smart play because, again, in a game that doesn't matter, I'm going to take the team getting the points. So that's something that you really want to look out for. You talk about in the NFL, you see a big increase in the ATS, the cover rate for a lot of dogs in the preseason, especially in those first few games, because there's a lot of unknowns which you can capitalize on. So when there's less when there's less actionable data and less to lean on, that's where variance can benefit a dog getting points or a dog getting a plus money payout overall. So dogs pretty good, just generally speaking in the preseason. I also look at motivation. Motivation is really, really important to me. And that's something that I lean on a lot, especially in baseball, because in baseball, that's kind of the longest preseason overall. When pitchers and catchers report, they start playing games. There can be split squad games. They're playing pretty much every day. And as a result, one thing you want to look at is, teams who did really well the previous year playing teams that were very poor the previous year. So one example would be looking at teams that missed the playoffs the previous year against teams that made the playoffs or took a deep run. Number one, they have less, again, it's a long offseason, but they have less time to rest. It's a shorter season. But also, they don't really care too much about preseason. It's, wins and losses don't matter. The records don't matter. But for those teams that maybe were pretty bad the previous year, like the Miami Marlins, it seems like they're always in first place in spring training, and then they're in last place during the regular season. Teams like that want to bounce back. They want to perform well. So kind of buying low on bad teams versus good teams can be profitable. Specifically in baseball, you're also looking at the spread, the run line. That's your +1.5 with your dog. It's your favorite -1.5. A lot of baseball run line dogs getting a point, getting a run and a half, even though you're paying a higher number, they're winning at a pretty high rate, generally speaking, especially dogs that are on the road because, home field advantage isn't very prominent in spring training. It's super laid back. You really don't have, a crazy crowd behind you cheering you on. So as a result, a lot of dogs, a lot of road teams getting a run and a half tend to do well, winning at about a 60% clip. Also getting the 1.5, there can be ties in preseason, which, if it's an 8-8 tie in a baseball preseason game, you cash if you got the 1.5. So that's really, really important overall. I also look at the fact that this is the time of year where you really got to do your research and lean on a lot of local reporters, Patrick, which I know you're a big fan of, because a lot of these, depending on who's going to play, who's not, may not be known widely, but if you follow those local beat reporters, they're going to tell you, okay, Chris Sale's only going to throw 30 pitches today, or who's in, who's out, that sort of thing. So focusing on those local reporters can give you great insight into a lot of these preseason games. Then we also talk about going contrarian, betting against the public. By and large, when you're talking about preseason betting, there isn't much contrarian value. There really isn't any advantage to betting against the public because these ticket counts are much, much lower. First of all, the public really isn't going to pay attention to preseason. Sharps may lay off because they don't see an edge, but as a result, the ticket counts are much lower. So therefore, there's really no public to bet against. You can kind of throw away the contrarian aspect of it. And again, looking at line movement, because in a preseason football game, if you see a quarterback expected to start, but then he sits late, a team could move +3 or -3 to +3. You can see huge fluctuations with a lot of these preseason lines. So add it all up, lean on a lot of dogs, and really know that this is a unique time of year to really put in a lot more work in terms of studying matchups.
That is a tremendous start, Josh. And if I could add to baseball, I was lucky enough to cover Cactus League, and I went to the Angels facility, and Mike Scioscia was in what, year 20, managing the Angels. It was his last year. And when I went to interview him, he had his feet up, and I asked the philosophy as far as spring training. He said, not to get hurt. Okay, the reason I bring that up is because you know what you're getting heading into these individual games. I then went across town in Arizona. A new manager was taken over, and he said, this is a table setter. I'm going to set my philosophy. Every game's treated like a regular season game. So when betting Major League Baseball, as far as the preseason's concerned in spring training, understand that a new manager, at that point, he's setting his philosophy. Somebody like a Mike Scioscia, who at the time was managing the Angels, the philosophy had already been ingrained.
I think it's a great point, Patrick, because that's another little variable that you want to be aware of. Again, a new coach, a new manager, they want to set the tone. They want to kind of get off on the right foot, so they're going to take it a little more seriously. Maybe they set their lineups and put in more starters, or maybe they kind of approach a game with a winner take all mentality. Whereas the Astros maybe, or the Red Sox or the Dodgers, a team that's deep playoff run, maybe won the World Series, they have their culture established. These preseason games don't mean as much to them in general. So I think that's kind of your overview overall. Be aware of these little tendencies or edges that can really increase your payout and hopefully build your bankroll as you walk into the regular season.
And to that point, Josh, before we move on to the regular season here, the preseason betting as far as the NFL, we can call it the John Harbaugh effect. He covers, listen, John Harbaugh, you have to look at these coaches because in the NFL, there's certains like John Harbaugh, Bill Belichick's been one. There's just different philosophies and ways to approach these games, but there's money to be made.
Exactly, leaning on a lot of coaches, and that's another thing that sharps will really look at when you're betting NFL preseason. Coaching styles, coaching tendencies, how they approach these games. And John Harbaugh is a guy that, again, it's crazy. You look at some of his ATS records. Seems like he's covering and winning somewhat easily a lot of these early games in season. So, great point by you, Patrick. Pay attention to the coaches.
Now, let's shift to regular season, and I'm going to let you run with this because this is where you're going to do the predominant your predominant betting. But going from preseason to regular season, let's set this up, Josh.
Yeah, so a couple things before we get into some high level trends for betting the regular season. I think it's important that bettors kind of get their mind right when they're walking into a regular season. You want to know going into it that majority of your bets will be taking place during the regular season, but also there's so many games that you got to get into the mentality of a thick skin, and really you're knowing that you're in this for the long haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You want to be as selective as you can be, knowing that there's going to be games every single day, and if you don't see value, it's okay to lay off that day. There's always going to be more games. So I look at it as kind of embracing the grind and knowing that you're in it for the long haul. You're going to accept the fact that there's going to be some volatility, there's going to be ups and downs, and you don't want to have that weigh on you. You want to know that, okay, if I'm betting baseball, I may have an absolutely terrible April. I may be, minus 20 units and I want to give up, and this is just awful and I want to quit. But it's a very long season. You could have a terrible April, you could bounce back and have a fantastic May. And really, you got to look at that as the long term, kind of just stick with it and really get your mind right. Because if new bettors, how you start off a season can really influence the way you cap games, the way you bet. It can make you gun shy. If you do well, you can get overconfident. So kind of just keep that even keel approach and know that you're really going to be in it for the long haul. So I think that's really important. And then we just kind of break up regular season into a couple different time periods. One would be when you're early. That first month of the regular season, that can provide a benefit one way or another to dogs' favorites, also really to totals. Look at in the NFL, September dogs do very, very well. Basically, when it's more of a level playing field and everyone's healthy, and really those favorites may not have meshed and really hit their stride yet. You also look at unders do very well in the NFL in September because the defense is way ahead of the offense. Same thing with baseball totals in April. When it's really cold weather and, we all played Little League, and when your hands are freezing and you hit the ball at the end of the bat and your hands sting, it can be rough. So a lot of unders do weather early on when it's cold. But then the opposite when you're looking at college football, hot weather, 85 degrees or more in September. A lot of these southern universities and colleges where it's really, really hot, that benefits overs early on. Then when you kind of get yourself into the grind of the regular season, being conscious of some high level stuff like divisional dogs. Divisional dogs is something you really want to lean on, especially in the NFL and Major League Baseball, because teams play each other, fellow divisional opponents, much more often than non-divisional opponents. And when you can look for those games, it benefits dogs because of that built-in familiarity and kind of knowing your opponent better levels the playing field. Also, Patrick, we talk a lot about correlative betting, where a lot of times if you are looking to bet dogs in a baseball game, you want a high total because more
Right.
expected runs scored, more variance, more likely you're going to pull off an upset. If you're betting dogs in the NFL or college, you want a lower end total because the fewer amount of points expected to be scored makes it harder for that favorite to cover the number. Also, scheduling spots, that's really big. Be aware of teams rested versus tired. NFL teams favorites coming off a bye perform very, very well against the spread. So paying attention to that can be very important. And then knowing that just picking your spots when you're going contrarian, when you're betting against the public. Not every regular season game is created equally. If you're going to try to capitalize on public bias and place yourself on the side of the house, you got to look for those super heavily bet games, those primetime games at 7 or 8 o'clock at night that are on ESPN or TNT or ABC or TBS. Those are the games, your Monday night footballs, your Thursday night, your Sunday night, where going contrarian can really, really pay off. And then, of course, just getting in the grind of looking at overnight lines, tracking line movement, making sure that you're shopping for the best line when you're betting games. These are just some things that you want to look out for when you're in the grind of the regular season.
Josh, while you were saying that, and it's a tremendous, by the way, I just want to let everybody know vsin.com, while we're doing this, if it's a little overwhelming with the information, we've got all the bullet points. I mean, this is a lot of information. Josh wrote a book on this. So we've got bullet points up there. You can go to vsin.com. You can become a free member right now, and all this information is going to be there. So I wanted to make sure I let you know that. Also, it's a term that we have fun with on the Lombardi line and here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting, but contrarian. It's something that I want them to become associated with. It's a buzzword, but it's also a concept. Can you explain exactly when you say contrarian what you mean?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Patrick. It's a lifestyle, it's a concept, it's a philosophy. Basically, you think of contrarian. What does that mean? It basically means you're going against what everyone else is thinking or everyone else is doing. And why is that important in sports betting? Because more often than not, the betting public, which makes up 95% or more of the overall market, your average Joes, your regular bettors, your recreational bettors, your casual bettors who love sports, but they're doing it for fun. They're betting for entertainment. There's nothing wrong with that. We all started off that way. But betting against the kind of the betting public overall can be very valuable because
Okay, looks like we lost Josh for a second. We'll go ahead and dial him up and get him back in here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. But we do have fun with that. Contrary, it's a derivative, contrarian. And I think it's important. Listen, we always talk, and the joke is always they don't build those buildings for nothing. Listen, eventually, if you're going to become a winning sports bettor, most of the time, the majority of the time, you're going to have to go against the favorites. You're going to have to go against the crowd, which is that's something you're going to have to deprogram or disassociate yourself with as a human being. Our general idea or our instincts are to go with the crowds. In sports betting, if you want to become valuable and profitable, you're going to have to go contrary to the crowd, which is contrarian. Okay, Josh, we got you back. Let's continue. And the next one here, as far as regular season, I really want to hammer this point. We just have a couple of minutes here, but studying the overnight lines and tracking that line movement, this is so important.
Yeah, if you really want to be a successful sports bettor, you got to live, eat, and breathe betting nonstop. You can't just get home from work and look at, okay, what's the NBA ESPN game tonight? And then, okay, who do I like better star players? Okay, I'm going to bet the Lakers. You want to really put the time and effort, and you want to be aware of the entire market. You can't just say, okay, what's the line now? It's 7. what does that mean? Did it fall from 8 to 7? Did it open at 6 and go up to 7? You want to be able to follow the market and kind of read how the market is moving. So this is the importance of having access to live odds, betting software, looking at line movement. But overnight, usually the night before, the odds makers will release the numbers on all the games. They'll set very low limits, knowing that, okay, if we set a number that's a little bit off, we don't want to get crushed by a sharp coming in and really hammering us because, we set the number at 3 and it should have been 2. But really looking at, okay, the night before, where did the lines open? And I look at immediately, where did it move? Because there can be head fakes. There can be situations where sharps hit one side, come back the other way. Billy Walters was kind of the king of that. But really, looking at how a line moves early and how it evolves over time. Did it only get to a 3.5 and always come back down to 3? That tells you that maybe that the hook was really, really important in situations like that. So don't get in the habit of just, coming home from work, looking at lines. Research the night before, look how they move, and really look at kind of what the high water or low water marks are for a line, because that can tell you how willing or how far the books are willing to go. And basically, anytime a number gets scooped up and moves back down, that's telling you that that's kind of the opportune number that that you would have wanted to have gotten.
Okay, we're talking betting by season here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. I want to get into the NCAA as far as basketball and football and the rankings and how they impact your betting. Also, what KenPom recommends when talking about conference play. And then we're going to get into postseason betting as well. But coming up next, right here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting, we're going to build your bankroll with Bankroll Builder as we continue along. Remember, you missed anything, go to vsin.com. We're coming back with Josh here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting.
Hello and welcome. We are back. Welcome to Quick Picks. If you put in a $100 deposit, this is one of our greatest promotions here at VSiN. Opening a new account, you will get a bonus. So if you go to quickpicks.com/VSiN bonus, great way to bet on virtual quick picks. And also make sure you go to vsin.com. Everything right now, Point Spread Weekly, and all of our data and content is free until all the major sports return. Remember, Quick Picks, virtual $100 deposit bonus. Just go to quickpicks.com/VSiN bonus. So yeah, welcome to the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. As always, we're going to talk about how to improve your bankroll. This is one of my favorite segments overall. So the idea is not just talking about strategies in terms of specific games, but in general, how can you build your bankroll? How can you make more money in general? So today we're talking about a lot of different season types. We're talking about how you make sure you want to handle preseason, regular season, postseason differently, because there are different variables. We're going to talk to TG, our guy Thomas Gable at the Borgata, how the book handles different season types and bet types. But you got to remember, if you are a sports bettor, there is kind of an off season. Even though betting is 365, and if you really want to get good at betting, this is a season-long endeavor. There is kind of an official off season. Usually, it's in the summer. It's after you've wrapped up your NBA playoffs, your NHL Stanley Cup runs. Really, baseball is kind of the only sport going on. But this usually takes place around July or August. And Patrick, we're going to talk about what you can do during this time, not to just put your feet up and rejuvenate, but also how to use it to your advantage and make money and get ready for the football season.
Yeah, the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. I'm so glad you brought up the rejuvenation. Listen, I honestly, the hardest working people I know are professional bettors because the margin is so razor thin. They're always on. You ask, well, do you work 9 to 5? They're literally working nonstop because if they get a text that comes in, they got to fire right away. Back in the day, you used to have to run up to the book to bet. But it is important to have balance in life. We understand now it can be counterproductive to go, go, go. So let's focus on that as we build our bankroll here. When do you take off time, Josh?
Yeah, so usually it's around, July, August. Again, you don't really take too much time off because we all love betting, and it's funny if you can't get down on a game, you miss it, and you want to get back at it. But use this gambler's vacation kind of to your advantage. This is a time of year where you want to do a couple things. Number one, it's okay to take a little bit of a breather when you're in the grind of betting 24/7 for 9, 10 months straight. If you get a little bit of fresh air and you kind of smell the roses and you can look at other things going on in your life, that can rejuvenate you. It can give you kind of a shot of energy and get your mind right and get you ready to attack another big season coming up. NFL players, they don't play football 24/7. That off season is important to kind of get your mind right and get ready and prepare. So number one, knowing that a little time off can benefit your mind and keep you fresh, but also use this time constructively. Not only are you going to take a vacation from betting in general and hang out with your family and focus on maybe in relationships that maybe you neglected during your grinding of sports betting, but also, Patrick, try to use it constructively. We're always trying to find ways to make the most of time off. So what I look for is a couple things. Number one, analyzing your performance over the last 9 months, 10 months. Look at, hopefully you've been documenting all your plays, writing down your picks. Look through your picks, audit your plays and look at, okay, what were my strengths, what were my weaknesses? Man, NFL, I was down the middle. I didn't make or win or lose any units, but I was up 10 units on totals. I was down 10 units on spreads. What bet types were I good at? Where can I focus on improving? That sort of thing. Audit your plays. Also, readjust and reassess your bankroll. That can be really fun and really important because see how you did. If you started off with $1,000 9 months ago, you've turned that into 1,500. If you were flat betting, risking 3% per play, you're betting $30. Now you can maybe bet $45 a game because you made a little money. You can adjust your bankroll. On the other side, maybe you had some bad beats, you struggle a little bit, had some tough losses. That 1,000 you started with is now 500. Adjust your bankroll. Maybe you drop that down to $15 a game by abiding by that 3% flat betting bankroll. But again, use this time off constructively, rest, rejuvenate, but also reassess your bankroll, audit your plays, find out what you're good at, what you can lean on, and what you're struggling with, which you need to spend more time improving.
That is such a great point. The best handicappers and professional bettors I know, they're really big into self-actualization. And what I mean by that is they keep their house clean nonstop. It's every night they sit down, they go through their tendencies. Are they leaning one way? And then weekly they go through it. And then monthly, it's constantly looking in because this is ultimately, betting is exhibiting your character. And sometimes you can find some tendency or leans without being self-actualized. So make sure you're constantly keeping diligent records. Okay, that's most important. Thomas Gable coming up next from the Borgata right here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. It's VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Okay, the horses are running, and Ron Flatter's got you covered on the Ron Flatter Racing Pod. This is a good one now. Hall of Fame trainer Bob Baffert discusses this weekend's Arkansas Derby. He also admits that he thought about moving his stable out of Southern California. Horse player Tony Joe talks about the realities and myths of computer handicapping. Also, our very own VSiN's Vinny Magliulo and Japan racing expert Kate Hunter handicapped this weekend's big races at Oaklawn Park and Kyoto, which you can bet here in America. The Ron Flatter Racing Pod is posted at Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and vsin.com/podcast. It's sponsored by First Bet. Okay, we welcome you back here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. And this is a thrill for Josh and I, because without a doubt, the breakout star on the Lombardi line this past fall was the one and only Thomas Gable, director of race and sportsbook there at the Borgata in Jersey. It's the best sportsbook. It's the best casino in all of New Jersey. And with that, we say hi to TG. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Patrick. I don't know if the quarantine is getting to you, but yeah, I'm definitely not the breakout star
No,
by
man.
any means. But nice to talk with you guys again, for sure.
No, you're the best, Thomas. Okay, we're talking different seasons, right? So typical sports book handle for preseason. We can go sport by sport here, but let's start with the NFL. What kind of action are you getting on NFL preseason betting?
Sure. So the NFL certainly, I mean, it's the king, right, when it comes to handle and sports betting, and that goes definitely the same for preseason amongst the other sports as well. The thing that you have to keep in mind from the book's perspective, there's a lot of volatility in those preseason NFL lines. You always see a lot of volatility, and there are always coaches. You really have to look at the coaches when you're betting this, because there are coaches who are going to try to win, and then there's coaches who really don't care about winning or losing a preseason game. They just want their players to get their reps in and see how certain plays are going to be run. So you really have to be careful in terms of the limits that you offer in any sort of preseason sport. We just had the spring training right before, obviously, the everything kind of came to a halt. And from a book perspective, you have to remember you always have a preseason occurring at the time that a regular season is also occurring, and that's where your focus really is, and that's where most of the public's focus is on the regular season of a sport. So you had spring training baseball going on at the same time as the NBA regular season and NHL regular season, and then you had the NCAA college basketball going towards their postseason. And the focus really isn't on those spring training games, really, from the book's perspective. We'll put lines up every day, but the limits are smaller. We take $500 limits on spring training games. And there are certain guys who come in and they'll bet them, but you don't have the liquidity in those markets to offer higher limits typically in preseason. It's just not there, especially with the spring training. If you have a midweek baseball game in spring training, you may only write a couple tickets. So you can't really overextend yourself too much there booking the preseason games.
TG, this is Josh. It's just great to be with you again. And if anyone has never been to the Borgata in Atlantic City, you got to go. The Moneyline Bar and Book, really, really one of my favorite, legit, my favorite sports book overall. And TG does a great job managing and directing the Moneyline Bar and Book and the race club and everything. But TG, I just wanted to ask you in terms of the style of better that you see coming up to the counter. How does it vary during the different seasons? We were talking earlier how sharps may lay off preseason entirely because there's too much volatility. You really don't know what to expect, who's going to be in, who's going to be out. But there are also wise guys who love betting preseason because they embrace that opportunity. So how do you see the volume increase? What kind of handles are you getting? And really, what kind of bettors are more attracted to preseason, regular season, and obviously postseason is when the bet counts really, really tick up?
Yeah, good question, Josh. The preseason betting really, for us, what we see here, you see some sharper guys, and they're the ones coming in and are laying, the limits for the preseason games. NFL, you'll get a little bit more public money into the preseason, but the regular season, that's where you start to see the liquidity in the markets go up, because that's where the public starts to join in. So, you get those bigger handle games, certainly in the NFL and college football, and then going into the other sports as well. And then obviously as you move to the postseason, that's where kind of everybody gets excited and everybody wants to jump into the pool. So the liquidity goes up even higher. So as for the book's perspective, you can offer higher limits, through the regular season, and certainly into the postseason. We offer our highest limits. We do. And the other thing you also have to keep in mind too is the book that you're betting with. Maybe their risk pool isn't as big as some others, so maybe their limits are going to be a little bit smaller. But again, you're going to look to see whatever you're comfortable betting. Never bet more than what you're comfortable with, but certainly, by and large, you'll get down more through the regular season and then into the postseason than you will at any time in a preseason.
And TG, you mentioned it. Obviously the NFL is king; it's a monster. But if you're to look at the four majors as far as the preseason betting, what would you say? I mean, as far as the NHL, NBA, and Major League Baseball, what are you dealing with there as far as handle?
Well, certainly the NFL is the highest. NBA would come in second, followed by Major League Baseball, and then the NHL. Summer League NBA does get some play, and I think that's also due just to the time of the year. You only have baseball really going on in the summer, so it gives people an alternative to bet as opposed to just on Major League Baseball. And certainly the summer league is becoming more and more popular. You're out there in Las Vegas, right in the heart of it, so you see it out there. It's just growing in popularity.
Yeah, without a doubt. TG, it was too short. Listen, we miss you, buddy. I want you and the family to stay safe, because come next fall, we're all going to be together again. That's Thomas Gable, director of race in the sports book there at Borgata in Jersey. It's the best casino. It's the best sports book at Borgata Sports if you want to go and check it out as well. Thank you, Thomas. We love you, buddy. Be safe.
All right. Thank you, guys. Great job.
Okay, there he is, Thomas Gable. Okay, coming up next here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. So we've got to the preseason, the regular season, a very important season. We didn't get to it yet. We're going to get to the postseason. Also, a quiz is coming. Josh's journal, we're going to throw that up there. What did you learn today as far as betting the different seasons? Okay, that's all coming up. But next, very important postseason betting. There is a stark contrast between the postseason and the regular season, and Josh is going to let you know what that is right here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. Of course, it's VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Okay, our cover story this week in Point Spread Weekly is on the NFL Draft, with a special focus on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers' moves, which, by the way, didn't exactly improve their Super Bowl chances, at least according to the betting market. Now, Ron Flatter and Dave Tooley will also preview a big weekend in horse racing. They do a great job with it. Just pick up Point Spread Weekly for the horses. Trust me, you won't. They do a great job. Also, now's the time to become a VSiN Plus subscriber. So what I mean when I say this is, most of the time you're going to have to pay to become an insider, a VSiN Plus subscriber. It's all free until the majors come back, okay? Until one of them comes back. So you're not going to have to decide what to do, pay or cancel, until at least one of the major sports returns. It's all very easy to sign up for. Just go to vsin.com/subscribe. That's vsin.com/subscribe. And a special shout out to Bill A.D., who continues to kill it with the morning daily newsletter. When you're there at vsin.com, this is absolutely free as well. Enter your email address and you wake up with your coffee with all of us and some sharp angles as far as betting and sports information knowledge. Okay? Now, as we welcome you back on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting, we're going to get into postseason betting and then Josh's journal. However, I wonder how astrology plays into sports betting. If you're a Taurus and today happens to be your 33rd birthday, and you're one of the kindest guys on the planet and an esteemed author of the Everything Guide to Sports Betting, I wonder how being a Taurus helps you sports bet. That's my way of saying happy birthday to Josh Appelbaum. I'm a Pisces, so I'm sensitive and weird, so I just throw all my money away. I wonder how being a Taurus has helped you become a better sports bettor, my friend. First off, happy birthday.
Thank you, Patrick. It means a lot to me. You're the best. Yeah, one of my old favorite songs, Blink-182, What's My Age Again? Nobody likes you when you're 20. Hopefully people like you a little better when you're 33. But yeah, being a Taurus, I don't know how it benefits me in general, but I guess I'm maybe a stubborn contrarian at heart. Maybe that plays into a little bit. But it's great to celebrate number 33 Larry Bird year on VSiN with my favorite people and you hosting, Patrick. It's a pleasure.
And Triv, also a Taurus as well, 33 back at the South Point. What I wouldn't give to be 33 again, you lucky son of a gun. Okay, let's get to the postseason. Now, we talked about the preseason. Today's focus is betting different seasons. We talked about the regular season. Very important to talk about the postseason. Let's get to it, Josh.
Yeah, so obviously this is really the most fun time of year if you're a sports bettor, whether you have a team that you have an emotional attachment in the playoffs or just betting in general. Betting really gets crazy and becomes super fun during the postseason. But obviously it's much more fun if you're winning your bets, not losing them in general. So one thing I would look at when you're betting postseason, the playoffs, is the fact that it's different from the other time of year because number one, there's far fewer games. Only the elite teams have made the playoffs. Your number of games each day really decrease, and as a result, mostly all of them are going to be super heavily bet. They're most all going to be on national television. They're going to be in a prime time spot, and you may have a lot of bettors, recreational bettors who really may not have bet and grinded all season long through the trenches of the regular season, but they're going to come out for the postseason because it becomes buzzworthy. You go to work around the water cooler, people are talking about a playoff series. You want to get in on the fun, but as a result, this is the time of year where going contrarian betting against the public really increases in terms of value because your ticket counts skyrocket. You have a lot of casual money flooding the market. And a lot of that casual money is going to be kind of the epitome of a public bettor, where you're really betting not based on data or line movement or you made your power ratings. You're betting based on who's the bigger name team, who has more star players. You're leaning really exclusively on favorites, home teams. If you're betting a total, you're really betting an over because you want to see more points, not less points. So as a result, this is really the time of year where contrarian betting spikes. Two things that come to mind for me are March Madness and bowl games. This is really the best time of year to bet against the public. So you have a ton of value there. You also look at certain things like neutral court unders once you get to conference play in college basketball, and these conference tournaments are played on a neutral court. Maybe the Big East tournament is at Madison Square Garden, and then you can kind of take advantage of neutral court unders where lack of familiarity, not knowing the environment and the sight lines can really benefit an under. You also look at rest versus tired and situations where a team is playing the second game in 2 days. That can be another important factor. You look at NBA playoffs where kind of the zigzag theory is something that really cashed back in the day. Not as much now; it's leveled out a little bit. But kind of you lose one game, you win the other. So there can be value to that. We also talk about situations like a team that's down 2-0 in the playoffs coming home that first game. Usually they crush it in the first quarter. So motivation can be a big factor as well. I also look at, Patrick, a lot of playoff series prices. This is another way of betting games where you can have basically the odds makers in the books will set a series price before every match, and then they'll adjust that price throughout the series depending on who goes up 1-0. Is it tied? Does a team take a 3-0 lead? And you can find a lot of value on series prices. Maybe you bet. I remember, Columbus Blue Jackets early in previous playoffs. They were a big dog and they beat the Caps, and you could get a great series price, and maybe you could hedge or adjust. So that's something that you always want to look at as well. And then also rolling over money lines. If you really believe in a team and you see a lot of value, instead of maybe betting a futures price at a low number, you could roll over your money line and just kind of ride that team. You saw the Tennessee Titans really perform well in that scenario. So long story short, postseason betting, it's super fun. It's even more fun if you win. Just know that you're operating at a specific time of year where betting against the public really ticks up. Know that playoff series prices can be very advantageous, and knowing that neutral court unders, late series unders when legs are tired, that can really be something that you can lean on this time of year.
I think it is so important to reiterate what you just said, and you said it perfectly. There's going to be an influx as far as betting handle in the postseason. That influx is going to be provided by mostly casual bettors, okay? So that's going to enhance the favorite as far as number. It's the perfect time to go contrarian. I know we say it all the time, but the postseason really is an opportunity to capitalize betting against favorites. Great job by Josh. Okay, let's open up Josh's journal. Let's find out what we learned today. And I just want you to give me the distinctions here. You give me a brief overview and the distinctions between the different seasons. We'll start with preseason betting, Josh.
Yeah, so number one, this all comes down to the fact that there are different times of year, different seasons, and as a result, you want to make sure that you're viewing them through the correct lens, knowing that there are going to be pros and cons for each type of season. So preseason betting, obviously, it's only available in your major pro sports, NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL. It's not available in college. And as a result, you really want to go one of two ways and go all in or go all out. Either lay off entirely because it's exhibition season, that it doesn't matter who's going to win or who's going to lose. It's really just a time where you don't want to get hurt. You want to get your work in, and the final scores don't matter. However, if you're going to bet it, you want to go all in, and you want to make sure that you are taking advantage of specific edges. So, for example, leaning on a lot of underdogs, getting points in the preseason where games don't matter. It's a good idea to take the team getting the points, generally speaking, not cut and dry, but overall in the the NFL, dogs cover at about a 2% increase clip in the preseason versus the regular season. You also want to look at motivation. Know which teams are motivated, which aren't. Teams that are kind of perennial powerhouses don't really take the preseason that seriously. Teams that had a bad year the previous year, they want to bounce back. Patrick, you made a great point leaning on coaches, managers who take it seriously and want to get off on the right foot. Those are the sort of things you want to look at. But dogs in general, even MLB spring training, the run line, the spread, getting the +1.5. And then also, we're going to move on to regular season. So regular season, knowing that when you're getting into the regular season, it's a grind. Don't be too. Make sure you have thick skin and don't get too high or too low. There's going to be ups. There's going to be downs. You got to know that you're in it for the long haul. So you want to focus on certain things like early in the season, the NFL. A lot of dogs and unders do well when defense is ahead of the offense. College football, early September hot weather games go well to the over. During the season, you want to lean on edges that are universal, like a lot of divisional dogs, where divisional games level the playing field, benefit the team getting points or a plus money payout. Take advantage of that familiarity. Also, we didn't talk about it too much, but later in the season, tanking that can come into effect, and then also picking your spots when you're going contrarian, focusing on heavily bet games, also paying attention to scheduling spots, back-to-backs, teams off buys. You want to make sure you buy low, sell high in terms of rankings in college sports, where highly ranked teams will be kind of overvalued. Then we get to the postseason. So postseason, knowing that this is the most fun time of year, it's also the time of year where going contrarian, betting against the public really, really skyrockets. So that influx of casual money can really be a place to take advantage of if you're a wise guy. And then we were joined by our favorite guy in the world, TG, the race and sportsbook director at the Borgata. If you haven't been, you got to go. I love the Moneyline Bar and Book. And really, TG talked about the fact that, the liquidity and the fact that, it's a little bit harder for basically the variables of preseason, where the limits are lower because the books know that it can be more of a crapshoot than the regular season. And then obviously talking about the fact that once you get into the playoffs, really the limits increase. It's a huge market. And really that's when really it can be the funnest, and also a way to take advantage of a lot of public money flooding the market.
And quickly, off-season strategies. You can't work 24/7, 365. Give me a couple off-season strategies.
Exactly, Patrick. Take that time to rest, rejuvenate, and basically what you want to do is a couple things. Number one, look back at how you performed. Don't just look at your won-loss rate in your units won. You want to dig deeper. What sports were you good at? Audit your plays, document your plays. What could I lean on moving forward, and what do I have to work on moving forward? And then also, just conscious of the fact that you can reassess and readjust your bankroll based on how you did. If you did well over the past 9 months, increase your basically your percentage play, your unit size. If you did poorly, couple bad beats, maybe drop it a little bit. But use that offseason to your advantage. Rest, rejuvenate, audit your plays, and map out your bankroll management strategy moving forward.
Okay, let's go, VSiN. This is going back to basics, the principles of betting, betting 101, and the guy that's been providing the information is Josh Appelbaum. You can find him at Josh_insights. And what I want to do with that is I want to flood him with happy birthday wishes. He's one of the hardest workers, one of the kindest guys around. Happy birthday, buddy. I'll see you here on Monday on the Everything Guide.
Patrick, you're the man. I owe you. And just get ready when it's your birthday, because you're going to go viral. So just get ready.
I'm not telling you what my birthday is. We'll be back on Monday, 1 East, 10 West, right here on the Everything Guide to Sports Betting. It's VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Have a great weekend.